right, so for today's episode, it's going to be a little bit shorter, but we're talking about a really cool subject, which is flow state.
Yes, we're just going to do like a topic today.
Yep.
So we're going to talk about flow states, what they are. Some of you may not even know what that is. I didn't know what it was. I mean, I kind of knew what it was, but I didn't have a word for it until I was just reading something, I think online, and it came up, and I thought, this is something we really need to talk about. So,
Totally. Yeah,
it'll be a cool discussion, and we'll explain what they are, and then we'll also explain how we facilitate them within Acorn School.
Yes, because it's such a cool concept. And I think I heard about it like in passing, but then it really sunk in. You had this really great quote that you found explaining what it was. Can you read that to our listeners?
Yeah. So this is just kind of what is flow state. I found this quote and I just really liked how it explained it. And I also felt like it really defined Acorn School and kind of what we're going for as part of the philosophy behind Acorn School. So we're Waldorf-inspired, we're Charlotte Mason-inspired, we're nature-based, we're all these things. But one of our goals is that children are entering flow states while they're in our classes because that's the way you learn best.
And they're not ripped out of it as much as possible. We're not interrupting it. Like they're just left to do their thing in their flow.
Yeah. So we wanted to do a podcast on this because we thought it would be interesting for the moms that come to Acorn School and sometimes wonder, like, what are they doing or why are they doing what they're doing? So there's like so much intention behind Acorn School that sometimes to the naked eye, you would not realize that
especially,
it's intentional what we're doing
it is.
Because it looks so natural and it looks so just like they're playing or they're doing this or they're doing that. And we truly, there is a thought, there's a way of thinking, there's a reason behind everything we do. And so flow state is just an interesting topic to help parents understand
why we do that this way.
Why we do it. And I think it's interesting for people that aren't even in Acorn School because they can apply this to their own homeschooling. They can apply this to their, even if you're a teacher, you can.
Or an adult.
Yeah,
an adult. Literally
you can apply
anybody,
this to your life in so many ways. So that's why we wanted to talk about it. I'm going to read this definition that I have that I really liked. So what is flow state? Psychologists call the state of being so absorbed in an activity that you lose track of time and yourself flow. It is a state where people feel alive, authentically interested, and deeply absorbed, and it's how people learn best. Flow can occur naturally in children during play, movement, and hands-on activities they love.
Such a good quote.
Yeah, I just really like that definition because I feel like saying that it can occur naturally in play. It's one of those
I feel
things
like it encapsulates everything.
School.
Yes, it does. I mean, that's
perfect. What we're doing.
We're
playing, they're doing movement, they're doing hands-on activities that they love.
Yep.
And the children come to Acorn School. I mean, you have to pry them out of this place. They're in such a flow.
They really are.
When they're here. I was just in a conversation with the moms after class, or it was during class. We were talking all about transitions with our kids and how kids can struggle with transitions.
Yeah.
And one of the moms was saying to me, like, we've come here for 8 months and I still drag my kid out of here every time. Like, she hates leaving Acorn School because they enter such a state of flow. They're so absorbed in what they're doing. They're learning so much. They're absorbing so much. They're in an environment that is catered to create this for them.
Totally.
So that's part of the reason.
And you can attest to this too, but not only are they getting into their flow states during Acorn School, but then it carries on afterwards too.
100%.
Yeah.
Especially when we were outdoors. This is something I noticed after we'd been doing Acorn School for a while, is on the days we would have Acorn School, we would then load up in the car. Maybe we'd grab lunch on the way home or we'd go home, eat lunch. My kids would just play. Like, they didn't need all this stuff from me. They were engaged in whatever they were doing. Like, I would get home and be like, this is so lovely.
Like everybody's just
like
talk to them,
happily hanging out, and that is not like our normal everyday. Like usually there's like mom, this, screaming, like things going on. Like, it is not always a flow state at my house.
Totally.
But when we would leave, especially Acorn School in nature, they had been out in nature for 5-6 hours. Like we always stay late. We're always like at Acorn School all day long. And we would get home and they just play kindly together and they're just in this flow state. I would just watch Charlie. You could just see it. He was just absorbed in whatever was going on. And then sometimes you even hear them, parents probably know this, like when you capture your kid talking to themselves about something.
Oh, so sweet.
It's so sweet because and I notice it in flow states a lot when my kids are in a flow state.
Yeah.
And they'll be like reciting something from the story.
Oh, I love that.
Or they'll like
So
be
sweet.
singing the song, like the dragon song or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But Charlie will be like actively trying to remember it.
Mm-hmm.
You
because
know,
those were
it's
the
just
times that they were in
while
flow.
he's playing and doing something.
Yeah, it sticks with you.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah. So one of the biggest parts of Acorn School that makes Acorn School is nature.
Mm-hmm.
Like the best place for kids to enter flow state. It's so easy. There's just wonder all around you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I feel like nature is the perfect spot for any child to find something that they're interested in or that they love or that they want to do.
Well, and they call it
It's
like
endless.
The flow state definition, what they would call it is an autotelic experience. Flow is described as an autotelic experience. Am I saying that right? I don't know. Meaning that activity is rewarding. The activity that they're doing itself is rewarding. So they don't need external validation. This quality helps students engage more deeply in the learning process.
Yep.
So that's the other thing that I wanted to talk about, how Acorn School is designed, that we do not have grades or external rewards for participating in Acorn School. You don't get a grade, you don't get a medal, you don't get a sticker, you don't get a prize. Like you do take home crafts, that's cool, but that's something you created yourself.
And that you wanted to do.
That you
like
wanted to
none
do.
of our teachers, like
Good job,
our
Billy.
teachers.
Here's your quarter.
Yeah, or like they're not like we're doing this and everyone's doing it. Like our teachers are very intentional with laying out like this is the craft that you can do right now. Like it's, totally like
Help them
make
engage
it. And
in a
then
flow
they
state.
even tell them like, oh, like you can do it this way, but then that's it. The kids, like, if they want to change it or do it differently and they're in their flow state and they're just like vibing with their like dragon craft and they're making it a certain way, like our teachers will never be like, oh, you're doing it wrong. Like, that's not what I said.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, it's very like you take from it what you want to take from it.
Exactly. And
and for how long
too was that there's no extrinsic motivation to come to Acorn School.
Yeah.
I do believe too that most parents aren't forcing their kids to come to Acorn School. I think that the children have a genuine intrinsic motivation to be here.
Totally. Because then like if they are feeling like they're forced, then they just don't have to come anymore. Like, like it's totally like you're good. Like if it wasn't for your kid, like it's all good. Like,
There's nothing wrong with that.
No,
like,
not at all.
Is that the children want to be here. And that's a big part of entering flow state is that you need intrinsic motivation to enter flow state. It has to be something you want to do. You're not going to get into a flow state when you're being forced to do math problems.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't like that, it's not, and then it's about the grade that you get. So you're not going to enter a flow state because you're thinking about the extrinsic validation that you're going to get. You're waiting for the teacher, whoever it is, to validate you.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a personal self-reflection and a personal flow where you're, feeling alive, feeling authentically interested in something. Like I'm not authentically interested. I mean, in getting an A, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like it's extrinsic motivation. So flow state happens when somebody has intrinsic motivation to learn and to do something, which is the point of Acorn School, is that this is somewhere you want to be. These are activities, stories, songs, games, play that you're wanting to engage in, and therefore you enter flow state very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that applies to homeschooling in general. And my take of homeschooling is it's not traditional school at home. Traditional school, there's a grade and a reward and there's a test and there's, you need to prove that you learned whatever information.
Yeah.
In my homeschool, in my opinion, there's no proof. Like you don't need to prove to me that you know something because it's about something that you internally truly want to learn. Mm-hmm. And my children know a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And they're not tested. They're not graded on it. They're not given an A. It's truly an intrinsic motivation to learn that. And I think that's really important in homeschooling to take that mindset out of it. Of, am I evaluating my kids? Am I making sure that they hit this progress at this time?
Yeah, and I know I've noticed from being a public school teacher and then being surrounded by like homeschool like children and like moms. So when I'm around the homeschoolers, and if I bring up something like, I don't know, a random topic, all the kids look at you with these wide eyes like, "Oh, tell me more." Like, "What is that?" Where like at public school, they're so used to just being fed information that the curiosity slowly dies away. You know, like they're just like, "Oh, they're just gonna give me the information. I'm gonna have to learn it. I'm gonna have to absorb it." Like it's constantly being fed to them. I gotta read it back to them. Like it's just a lot. Okay. We're like the homeschoolers that they're just like, I mean, there's so many times when I'm talking to the kids and they're just like creeping towards me because they want to know like more.
Yeah.
And it's so precious.
Yeah.
They're just like so curious. It's very led by them.
You do that in class the other day. You were telling a story and then you had something and you were like, you guys can go play. Or if you want to know more about this, you can stay with me and look at this.
And
thing.
I had
and
like a
half of the class
like
random
prepped
plays,
towards me. Yeah.
And half of them were like, what is that?
Yeah, and
they
it was
came
great.
When they could be literally rope swinging and going down slides, and
but they wanted to know more. Yeah,
about what they were so fascinated by your lesson. And that's also what's cool is that the kids that weren't,
yeah, it's totally
went and
fine.
played.
Yeah, they went
and
did their thing. Yeah,
wanted to be,
which is great. Yeah,
wanted to engaged in something else. And the ones that wanted to know more, I watched it. I was like, wow, like I'm surprised.
To be honest, I was even a little shocked. I was kind of like, oh, okay, wow.
I expected
right.
them all to run off.
Yeah.
And half of them were like,
they were like, oh, I want to know more. And I was like, oh, okay, well, here we go. Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah, it was
I really
great.
liked that.
Yeah.
And a big part of getting into flow states, as we mentioned before, some of it's nature, but part of that is facilitating an environment that creates a flow state. So if you're in an environment that's cold, that's harsh, that's uninspiring, that is, you know, sterile, that's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
If you are uncomfortable, it's going to be hard to enter a flow state. But if your environment is set up with the appropriate resources and the appropriate conditions to facilitate flow, it's much easier to enter that. And that's something that happens in nature, but we've also designed, like in our classroom here, being at the rock climbing gym, we try to put them in
even
appropriate
our
environment.
Stories, our crafts, our
where we do things,
where we do things, why we move around, and also even like with our teachers too. I've given them the like ability, not I don't want to say ability, but they know their classes and their children to where I told them, I'm like, this is our schedule. Yeah, this is our schedule. But please, like, if you see the children just absolutely flowing with their free play, like sometimes they have a whole like almost like a play going on, a world going on. Like you do not need to move on at 10 o'clock, we're doing craft. Like, I know, like,
another 10 or
give them 10, 15 minutes. Like, go out there and, like, poke your head out. Yeah.
They're ready for something
Maybe they're ready for something else. Or you have kids trickling in, like, oh, when are we doing the craft? Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just very, like, child-led, natural, just kind of going with the flow.
Interesting. I was just reading, I was, like, re-referencing the Kingdom of Childhood, which is a Waldorf book, and it's a bunch of Rudolf Steiner's teachings. He did like what are they called? He would do where he would go talk to different teachers and like give like presentations about his work. And I was reading his book, and the book is just a compilation of those. So it's not like a book he wrote, it's a compilation of his speaking engagements. And he was writing something, and I thought I loved it when I read it because I related to it from my experience being in Waldorf school. But then also what we do is Waldorf teachers are taught to have their own autonomy. They aren't given a strict curriculum. The teachers themselves are supposed to engage the way that they intrinsically want to engage with the children and teach the children, and vice versa. And the way they see the children respond. Isn't that
lovely?
Interesting? So that's so different than like a traditional school setting where it's like, here's your curriculum, here's how you should do it, here's how you should teach it. The teacher has maybe not full, but has autonomy to go, we're going to learn about Native Americans today, and that way we're going to build wigwams because that's the way the teacher wants to do it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like,
sounds so nice.
They don't have to be the one that's just, you have to do it through drawing, you have to do it through writing, you have to read this certain book.
That was like one of the things as I mean, I never dwelled on this because I knew it was like never possible.
Mhm.
But I mean, when I was public school teaching, I had these kids for 6 hours a day for a year. Like, I knew my class.
Mhm.
I knew all of my children. I knew all their tics. I knew all their interests. I knew everything that was going on in their life. I mean, parents, they're like parents. I probably knew more about your life than your family members,
Yeah.
just because the kids,
They just tell you.
they just tell me.
Mhm.
But it was always like such a bummer because I knew what my kids were interested in, and I couldn't always act on that
Yep.
because I had to get done what I had to get
Yeah.
done. And I couldn't even teach them in a way that I thought would
That you
benefit them,
enjoyed.
that I enjoyed and I thought they would enjoy because I needed to do it the way that I needed to do it from the admin and our district and what we were supposed to be doing. And so I love that they got that.
Yeah, like a teacher should do what makes them feel alive.
Yeah.
That's how you're going to best teach somebody, is if you're teaching from a place of,
Well, and that's
I
going to make
love-
great teachers for a really long time. Like, I feel like I'm a great teacher, but I was already at year 2, maybe even year 1. I was getting like dwindled down with exhaustion and just not liking
Inspired.
teaching. No,
not inspired.
absolutely
And
not.
so Waldorf wants
Yeah.
their teachers to be inspired. They want them to
No, that
truly
creates a
use their
great teacher
children
for
as
a
the
long
curriculum.
time.
And I love that our classes, the teachers do have that. They have
Yeah.
a lot of autonomy to like make their own stories, adjust things, change things if they want to. Like, yeah,
Yep.
we provide like, here's the craft you're going to do today.
Yeah.
But in
Yeah.
a lot of ways, the teachers get to be themselves and do it in a way that they really enjoy. And if they aren't, like, they come to us, they talk to us, like,
They're like, hey, we want to add this in.
Yeah,
Oh,
we wanna
great. Like,
change
why? Or like, we ask
Yeah.
why just because we're like nosy and curious. But I love knowing the why. Like, oh, tell me why you think this would be helpful for your class. Or
yeah. So I love that about it.
Yes.
Another thing that you mentioned earlier about flow states, but I think that applies to our classes, is like the craft time. And we do a lot of like handwork, beeswax, and
A lot of
we design
open-ended
sewing,
things.
and we
Yeah.
design the craft. So one of the things about flow states is you want to balance challenge. So
Mhm.
like you want the challenge to be appropriate for the level. Like you want it to be a
But
little
you don't want it to be
bit-
too easy.
You don't want it to be easy.
But you don't want it to be too hard.
You don't want it to
You got to be
too hard.
right in the middle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You need it to be challenging to the child where they're working at it. And that's how you enter a flow, is because you're working at something that's
That you know
that's
you're capable of
interesting and
doing.
challenging.
Yeah.
But if it's too hard, you're going to give up eventually. You're going to get out of the flow because
Yeah.
you just you can't do
It's
it.
exasperating. Yeah.
And it's hard to do that for every kid, but we really do try to think about that. Like, this is our age range. What is something that is a skill that they could work on,
Mhm.
but they already don't know how to do, and that isn't too difficult? So, I mean, the crafts are very curated in that way where people might not know that. People might
But
not realize
even, like,
all the things we think about.
What's been so interesting to me too is some of our crafts that we do, like beeswax, for example.
Mhm.
Okay. We've had children in our classes literally the entire time that we've been in operation, and they've done beeswax countless amounts of times, yet they're never tired of it because
It-
beeswax, maybe
It's
at the beginning they could only do a ball, but then now because they've been working at it, they
They're, like,
make it
making
harder for
scorpions and
themselves.
stuff.
Yeah, they're making scorpions and
Mhm.
butterflies, and I'm like, whoa, okay, that's like super cool,
detailed.
detailed. So
And
they
you have
built
to
their
sit
own
there
level, which is really cool
with
as well.
beeswax. Beeswax is
Oh yeah, if you
very-
haven't worked with
you have to sit there
beeswax, it's a
for
labor
long
of
time.
love.
You have to warm it up.
Yeah.
But then you get to see your progress. You get to see something that you did not mutilated. What's the word? Manipulated.
Manipulated. I like
did
the other word.
Manipulation and created it to
Yeah.
be what it was going to be. And that also creates like deep concentration. So we
Yes.
mentioned that earlier, but some of the crafts, and that's another part of flow state, if you can deeply concentrate on something.
Totally.
And what's interesting is there are kids like talking and whatever, but we'll see kids in their crafts become so deeply concentrated.
Mhm.
Like they don't realize that all these kids are doing all these things around them, that
Yeah.
people are going and playing.
Yeah.
Kids get up from the crafts and go play.
Yeah.
My kid will sit there for 20 extra
Oh
minutes,
yeah.
deeply concentrated.
And I love
in
seeing
whatever
that
it is.
because that's I think what's always so fun, like taking a step back and looking at our classes, because I will watch children and I love seeing like certain kids entering into flow at like different points, and it's
certain
for
things.
them. They're all different because not every kid And also just each craft too, like from week to week. It's like, oh, that's the craft that had them enter into flow. Like that's really cool.
And it's cool that their parents are there because they can observe these things and how we're doing them.
And then take that home.
And they can go, my kid really likes sewing.
Yeah.
They entered a flow state and I saw them concentrate and really enjoy that.
Yeah.
I'm going to go buy some of that for my house.
Yeah.
I'm going to do some more of that at home because I think that was really good dexterity work for my child.
Totally.
You know, it's cool that the parents are there to watch what does create flow within my child and deep concentration.
Well, and I think it's really cool too. Like I didn't even get to tell you this. I had a parent today say that from Acorn school, the watercoloring, her son like loves watercoloring. Like
That's so
loves it. And so it's just so
that's
fun that you
we
get
do
to
in almost every class.
Yeah.
So like kids that have been coming for a long time have done watercoloring over and over and over again. And so they've gotten better at it. They've honed their skills. Whereas in the beginning, it was like pretty simple.
And then now the mom was saying that they do it a lot at home because they like love it. And I think that's really cool.
Oh, cool. One of the other things that I wanted to talk about, so like one of the other things that helps create a flow state is they call it immediate feedback. So when it's not something that you have to do for a long time to see what the feedback is, what happens. It's something that like you immediately get
Give
a
and take,
reward or not even a reward, but like manipulation. So like if that's beeswax, like over time you get real, it creates
It's
a ball,
making
it softens,
something.
you get
Totally.
the feedback. The other thing that I thought was interesting though is a social feedback because our classes are also very social.
Oh
There's
my
a lot
gosh.
of
Yeah, the
social
playtime.
engagement and playtime.
Oh yeah.
They become in flow state.
Totally.
Their play, there's so much flow state in the play during classes. But they get immediate feedback. So like if
from
they
each
do
other.
From each other.
Oh my
So, like,
gosh.
if
I'll be
they do
watching them and
something-
I'm like, oh, they're about to get a feedback real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
But sometimes it's not always negative. Sometimes it's positive too.
This was between the toddlers today, so it wasn't like the older kids, but the toddlers, like one of them accidentally like hit the other one's face. And then the other one cried and they saw that. But then like 5 minutes later, the one that had gotten hit in the face had a sword, one of our foam swords, and like the mom was right there. Everybody was right there, but she went so fast and just attacked the other one with the sword. And we were all like, I was trying so hard not to laugh. I was like,
my
that's
goodness.
immediate feedback. Like, people do not like it when you hit them.
Totally.
They're
And
gonna
then
get
there's,
knocked.
for sure.
That was a toddler thing. So that's like more toddler stuff. But in the older kids, we see that all the time. Like Billy doesn't like it when that happens. So don't do that. You get feedback from your peers and they're learning these social skills in this setting that they wouldn't have.
Totally.
They were like,
Well, and I've even noticed like
really.
positive feedback.
Yes, and
Like,
positive feedback.
oh my goodness, today, the sweetest thing. So there were, okay, I'm going to set the scene here so you can picture this in your head. There were 2 of our girls sitting next to each other for watercolors, okay? Well, one of the girls has a friend who just walked in and there wasn't room for him to sit next to the friend. And so the girl was like, telling the other little girl, like, you need to like scoot over. Like, you know, can you like scoot over? And the other little girl like looked up and she was like, oh, you just got here. Like, let me move my seat over. And they like scooted over and they all sat there together and they like painted together and they were like sharing ideas and they were like bouncing off each other. Like, oh, what are you watercoloring? Oh, okay. Well, I might add that to mine. Like, it was so cute.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, it was adorable.
There's a lot of social skill learning, I feel like, and a lot of feedback in that way. And a kid who maybe does struggle socially with some certain things, like, they're going to learn what happens.
Yeah, like it was just so sweet because the boy like came in and he just stood there and both of the girls were like, oh, he needs a spot. Yeah. He wants to sit. Like they just were like automatically like, oh, cool. Like no big deal. Like let's scoot over. Like let's make room. Mm-hmm. It was so sweet.
So sweet.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I think that's a good simple overview. There's a lot more we could get into about the specifics of flow state. And if you're interested in that, there's some good books. One of them is called Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience. It's by Mihaly. I'm never going to say that right. So we'll put it in show notes.
Yes.
Because it's very hard to say. But that's a good book if you really just want to deep dive into like flow states. Like I want to know everything about it. I think in general, we cover just kind of overall what you want to be looking for. But we also can just kind of create a little script or blog that has some of this information if you want to reference it at home. One of the things I did want to mention is that they say a lot of people's core memories come from being in a flow state.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't
That
that
actually makes a
cool?
lot of
It makes
sense.
so much sense.
It really does.
So like family vacations, times when they were just like in an intrinsic motivation where it was lovely, certain things. And I think about like
That's
Acorn
very
school.
true.
Like I think about how many kids, like probably some core memories of their life are going to be
Oh, that's
coming
so
from being in their
sweet.
flow states at Acorn school. If you've never read the book Roxaboxen, it's like so cute, and it's
That's
about
really sweet.
kids that played in the desert.
Oh, I love
Were in
thinking
flow
about that.
states. And so I think that's really interesting that, you know, people talk about their childhood memories. If you look back, it was probably a time where they were in a flow state.
I'm so sorry. That's like blowing my mind actually to think about that.
That's so
The
sweet.
kids that we have in our classes, when they grow up and they're talking to their friends or like their significant other, they're going to be like, oh, well, when I was a child at Acorn school, like this, and this, like that's going to be so, that's really cool.
And this other one is cool too. So research from St. Bonaventure University found that students experience more enjoyment and flow when they participated in activities as a team rather than alone. So activities can enhance flow experience, reinforce the positive psychology principle that other people matter. So I thought that was really cool because, you know, there's a lot of ways of thinking, even within homeschooling, like where it's like, do it on your own.
Yeah.
And at Acorn School, they're doing things as a group. You know, there's a lot of social interaction as a group. And I thought that was so cool that like when you're in a flow state with other people, it is reinforcing that other people matter.
Yeah.
These people are important. It's not just all about me and what I want to do. You know,
Totally.
it's about all of these people. And when you're in flow state with people, you're getting that immediate feedback. You're getting that interaction. You're getting those enjoyments, those core memories, and you're just enforcing like this community.
Yep.
And so I thought that was cool that there's like literal studies on how that works.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well,
is there
wonderful.
anything
Thanks
else you were
for
thinking.
No, I think we hit it all. And thank you for joining us on this little mini adventure into flow state and how it applies to our Acorn School classes.
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks
We'll
for being
catch
here.
you next time. Bye.